Welcome to CSB Television. April is National Jazz Appreciation Month, National Poetry Month, National Autism Awareness Month, and International Guitar Month. In the month of April, we will be sharing videos from the past that has anything to do with guitars, autism, poetry, and jazz. Let's take a look at today's video. Talking with people with music in their genes, their blood, and in their soul. You are watching Musical Interlude. Hello and welcome to another episode of Musical Interlude. I'm your host, Casey Bell, and today's guest, we have today's Kory Livingstone. He is a composer, a musician, and an author. Let's take a listen at this interview. When was the earliest moment you can remember that composure might be something you were interested in doing?
Probably when I was, I think my early 20s. I was, after a lifetime up to that time of just playing, there was I saw other things, especially because I was involved. Well, actually, it's probably even before that, because I think when I was around 15, 16, when I started to get into jazz. And jazz basically is composing on the spot. So I guess you could say all the way back there, yes. As opposed to, it was formal, yet it was informal. I didn't go to textbooks and read, how to do this. It was just, it was part of the process. So, and that's what composing is. Composing is actually improvising, and then you sort of settle on you sort of settle on a pattern, because there's I bet dollars to donuts, if you picked any composer from any genre that codified his music, either in writing or just orally, I bet if you ask him to play it 3 times, each time it'll come out different. I was studying with this one particular classical composer, and he said when he was a young composer, him and 2 other colleagues went to New York, from Canada to New York. And this was in the 50s, when bebop was in its heyday. And they went and listened to Coleman Hawkins. And they went 3 different nights. And he said he played the exact same notes each time for the same song. So he had it, written here, as opposed to what was writing on the paper. And that's why we write on paper, so that, I remember, this is how I did this version, So that's what, when you see any written music, that's only the version that the composer used to codify it. So this is my song, but he was to play it again, he would, without the music, or just ask him to play it again live, bring back a Bach or Beethoven, it would be different, however different, not completely different, but it would be various. Because as a composer, if you have idea A, there's no such thing as idea A. It's idea A number 1, A number 2, A number 3. I could use 3 or 4 things here, I can wear a red shirt, I can wear a green shirt, a blue shirt, but they're all shirts, and they just vary a little bit. So this is what really goes on. There's no such thing as a composition set in stone, right, unless it's a nursery rhyme.
So what encouraged you to follow the dream of being in music? Because a lot of parents discourage their children to follow that pathway, and lots of times people's friends don't even encourage them to go forward. And so what made you say, this is what I'm going to do, regardless of what people may say?
Yeah, unfortunately, you're 100% correct there. Your closest friend and your family can be your biggest naysayers. But I didn't have that power. I was forced to play the piano. It was the other way around. I was forced to play. I really didn't care for it. I really didn't care for it till I got to an age when, and it's mainly because the music was pretty boring, you know. Da, 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 run across the bridge, run up the hill, down the hill. Oh, geez, remember, give me a break, you know. And then it wasn't until I was in high school I discovered this teacher had given me real piano music, like real music, not this dickily dickily dockly stuff that was basically made so you could train your fingers to do this or do that or read. No. So when I discovered that, I went from forced playing to I paid for my own music lessons, you know. This is when I discovered jazz and blues and stuff like that. I mean, that was exciting. So my parents were happy that I was going from a forced march of 30 minutes a day to 2 hours. I did 2 hours a day every day just because I loved it. So that was the encouragement, you know, that I was on their side. And then they really never said, don't do this, don't do that, you know. I went to university to get a degree, some sort of degree as a backup in case the music didn't work out. But fortunately for me, because I knew probably unconsciously or self-consciously that music was a business and you're not going to get hired or you're not going to get anywhere if you sit by the home, sitting by the phone waiting for it to ring, because it ain't gonna ring. You know, I had to do the dialing. So I guess coming from a family that was a family of business people, those things sort of rubbed off on me. And I applied the business, the theory of business to the art of music. And that's the only way I could have made it go. Any only way anybody can make it go. I have friends who were in fact, I still have a friend who lives in a 1-bedroom apartment. You know, after all these years, that's all he can afford because he sat by the phone. He's a good musician, mind you, fantastic musician, but he sat by the phone, listening, waiting for it to ring, and there you go. It's like, you know, for anything, it doesn't matter what it is. You wait by the phone. Be a long time coming. You know, so basically, I didn't have those. I didn't have that roadblock. Maybe I should have, but I didn't. My parents sort of, you know, there you go, because they were self-made people. So I guess, you know, they were used to that.
So I actually, in my own journey, learned the hard way that sitting by the phone doesn't work. But I also learned that there are many different roads and avenues to take to become successful in whatever arena you want to be in. And so what did you begin to do once, I mean, because you're never done being a student, but when you were finished with your traditional classes of learning how to read and write music, learning how to play, learning the different types of, you know, classical, R&B, jazz, etc. How did you learn about context networking? Where did you go? Whose door did you knock on? What were your steps to get to where you are now?
Well, on my last day at school, I packed up from residence. I'm in my car and I'm driving home. I always remember this very vividly. As I backed the car out of the parking spot, my dad's car with all my stuff, and I was driving away, like a lightning bolt, and it said to me, "You don't know a damn thing about music." It just came to me. After all those years of studying, I realized now my education was starting. The only thing education does is if you were a good student, it shows you how ignorant you are. It shows you how much you have to learn. That's, you know, and the higher degrees you get, the more you realize you don't know. And if you get, you know, your PhD and doctor that, and you walk around with your head in there, oh yeah, I've got a PhD. You're so, you are this, you are really dumb. You are really stupid. Really, you're a real dumbo. Because you should know, shame on you. There's just, I mean, you should be somewhat maybe depressed. I thought I knew, I know nothing. I know this much in an infinite world. And that's what dawned upon me. Now my education starts. And I learned trial by fire. My first job that I went to, my major was piano, and I was going to be a professional piano player. Didn't care. There were singers, but you know, singing, schminging. You know, who cares about singing? Who cares when I was a hot shot piano player, so I thought I was, anyways. And in those days, the usual route was to go and find an agent. Agent would get you work somewhere. So I went to my first agent, and he said, "Sit down and play me something." And so I played one of my numbers. Oh yeah, okay. I thought it was pretty. And he looks at me and he says, "Kory, do you sing?" Sing? You know, that's for the birds, right? I'm not a damn singer. No, I don't sing. I play the piano. He says, "Sorry, but you know, for my type of work, you have to be able to sing and play." See, in those days, what was very popular in Toronto were what were called piano bars, big grand piano, and everybody sat around the edge. It was the precursor of social media. Okay, people would come, men and women would come, and a safe place. You got the piano player to bounce things off. You could sit around, listen to the music, and your cheek shoulder to shoulder around the piano, and you naturally start up conversations. You know, so that was the tweet, that was the Facebook in those days. And so the same afternoon, I had another interview, another agent. Same thing. I sat down, you know, and I play on a show. Guess what he asked me after I played?
Do you sing?
Oh yeah, I sing. I sat down and gave a butchered rendition of "Summertime," because everybody knows "Summertime." 170 times, you know. And we'd done it one of my blues bands in high school, and I became a singer right then and there. And it was my singing that was responsible for 90% of my professional work from then on. You know, the agent never gave me a job because he asked me, well, gee, he said, because his next thing was, if I could put a dress on you, I can hire you right now. So they're always looking for excuses, you know, to say no, because then it was women. Men like to go to the piano bars, and if there's a woman in a nice tight gown and her bosoms are sticking out and she's looking hot, they're going to attract all these guys, which will attract, you know. So that was the retarded thinking in those days. But anyway, so I went on my own. I realized I had to sit down, and I actually phoned hotels and clubs and restaurants. You know, phoning. Actually, even before phoning, I used to get in my car, and I'd start in the morning, and I'd drive. I'd visit one establishment, another establishment, another one after the other, you know, and I always got a job somewhere. So that was the start of it. So, but there we are again. There's my education started. I took, you know, I ended up taking voice lessons with some very famous people who were teaching voice at the time to improve my voice. Because it was, even though I played, I consider pretty good, my voice is what people wanted. This is what people wanted here, and I play and sing at the same time. And that allowed me to work 6 days a week, had 1 day off every week for years. That's what allowed me to have, you know, I like everybody else, you still care and wonder where your money's coming from, but so you have to keep hustling. You have to keep hustling. And of course, all musicians have to teach. You always teach, privately or somewhere. And I don't care who you are. What do you think Wynton Marsalis? He doesn't travel around the country anymore. He's up there in Juilliard, a nice, big, fat, comfortable teaching gig. You know, he'll go out once in a, you know, maybe, you know, 2 or 3 times in a year to do some playing, you know. But oh, you know, he's not going to be sitting in a hotel room 365 days, you know, a year away from home, you know, in some kind of a unsettled life. I don't get that. Every top musician, I don't care, classical, jazz, I don't care. I'll bet you $1 to donuts they got a teaching job in some college or some university, and that's their steady paycheck. Then they go out and perform. But you learn these things as you go, and of course, education. You know, forget General Motors, forget AT&T. Education is the biggest industry in the entire world because people are always learning. It doesn't matter what the field, there's always a seminar, there's always a conference, there's always a Zoom meeting. You know, look at all the groups on Facebook. Something you can always learn. You know, it's just, you know, education is, you know, mankind, humankind. It's in our DNA. We are curious. We were made to learn. Now, that's another whole other thing, because unfortunately, the education system thinks that education means being trained how to memorize. That's not, no. Education is nurturing curiosity and creativity. That's what education is. But it's just been, it's messed up. You know, it's messed up, and who knows if it's ever gonna make it back.
So how did you, so this song, My First Love, is that something you've done a lot of, composing music for people as far as commissions, things of that nature, or was that a first time, one time thing only?
No, that's something that's I'm sort of retooling. I'm trying to make that now with the COVID. I'm doubling down on that to make that one of my main sources of income for writing songs for people. That particular song I wrote for a young lady who wanted a special song for her husband to be. That's what it was. And it's funny because I was talking about education. I was speaking at a seminar somebody put on a couple of years prior to this, and it was somewhere. Anyways, I talked about custom-made songs at the seminar, which we did, and you know, lo and behold, 2 years later, she contacts me. You see, and says, you know, I'm getting married, and because she remembered me from this thing, so obviously I impressed her, you know. So you never know where it's going to come from. That's why that's again another facet of education, like seminars. You're telling people what you can do, something that will help them. You know, she wanted to give an unusual gift to her future husband, and so I always, part of the process is getting some background about the relationship and, you know, where they've been, where they want to go, special stories and all that type of thing. And then I sit down and I write some poetry, which are really lyrics to that. And then I set it to music. And then, you know, you work things out and then you make a recording and you send it off on a CD and whatnot. In those days, CDs now will just be MP3 through the mail, through the internet. Excuse me. So that's how that particular song came about. And the main part about the song is that, you know, they were, their story, they've known each other since they were little. And they were both from Indian extraction, Far East, but they were living here in Canada. And she was sort of like she sort of tagged along with her brother and her brother's friend. And, you know, they sort of became close without knowing it. Then he went back to India, his family moved back there for several years, but they still kept in touch, you know. And then they came back, he came back, and then they sort of realized that they were in love, you know, and then that gave way to the wedding. So the whole theme of the story is of how they grew up together, just little kids innocently playing. And that was their first love, you know, and the only person they've ever loved. And then they had their time of separation and then back together. Okay. And so that's why it's my first love, because it actually was, and it's the only love, my first of my only love. And so that's the theme of the song. So it's sort of like a brief, you know, a brief highlight of their love story. And the way I constructed the song, vocally was the main part. I had a female singer. I sometimes I sang, sometimes not. It depends what the song requires. But so I had a female singing this, because this was from her to her husband. And then when I came to the refrain, "You are my first love, my only love," I chimed in, so there was a duet. So that's the two of them coming together. So you go from single, being, you know, and then the duet, both parties. So that sort of gave it vocally some cohesiveness, tied it all together. So there's a lot of thought that you know I put in. I just don't wrap this off in a few minutes. There's your song, because I know a lot of people, you know, some people figure as long as it's, who cares what the quality, as long as it's a song, you know, dum 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 la 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 la. Okay, good, that's a song, I'll take it. No, that's not. It's got to be something. Because see, on the back of my mind, see, I still own the song. Like legally, I own the song. They can do with it what they want. But it hasn't happened yet. But one day, one of these songs may just take off on its own. You know, on its own, and it's still my music. So that's kind of like a little caveat, a little gravy if that ever happens. I think I'm waiting for it to happen. It only takes one that will just, you know, someone might hear it and say, "Gee, I want to do a recording of that song." Who knows? You know, somebody might some artist somewhere might, "Gee, I like that song. I'm going to make it my own recording." And so you never know. So that's why I always retain the ownership, the legal ownership. The client can do whatever they want with the song. It doesn't really matter, but it's got my name.
I think that's very innovative how you took their life story and you've created the vocals to match their life story, because it wasn't just, okay, they're giving me money, so I'm going to make a song. You actually took the time to take their life story. You know, they meet and then they separate and then they meet, and then you created the vocals. You know, you had a female and you had a duet to create side by side with their life story. So if anyone's watching and they need a gift, personally, I think that's an amazing gift to give someone, a customized song. So not only do you write music, but you also have written and published a book called Quiet. If you can talk about, you know, what is it about and what was it that said, I need to write this and share this information with people?
Yeah, well, the book is called Quiet Determination, 15 Ways to Break the Barriers of Your Untapped Success. And it came about, you know, we're always learning, as we talked about. And I was taking this seminar. Actually, it was in San Diego. I went there. It was for a weekend seminar. And the whole purpose of this meeting, this seminar, was to start a book, to write a book, because the guy who was leading this, he said everybody, and it's true, everybody has a book inside of them. You know, people think, and a lot of people want to write a book, but they say, I don't know what to write about, I don't know. But really you do. When you sit down, and if you follow, there's a certain path, there's a certain outlet step you can follow, you can pull your first book out of yourself, because it's there. Everybody has a story. Everybody has a story, probably several stories. So I attend this, but I really didn't have any idea what to write. Now, then it came to me. About 5 or 6 years before this point, I was putting on a DIY, do-it-yourself concert. And basically that is you have the venue, but it's bare, you know. It's a small room, held a couple hundred people. There's no curtains, it wasn't really you have to turn it into a theater or a concert hall or to a workshop. And so that's what I did. I remember going down, the concert was a Saturday night. I went down early Saturday morning, I had my tools, my stepladder. I had to hang the black curtains. I had these black curtains, which I always have for things like this. I was hanging lights. I had my stepladder up and down the stepladder, hanging lights here, hanging lights there. I was turning it into something, okay? They brought the grand piano in. I had to make sure they tuned it right. I had to set up merchandise table for sales, and you always have to have snacks right at halftime. So I had to get all the stuff organized, right? And then I finished about 4 o'clock, and the band came down and short rehearsal. Then we had the concert. It was quite successful. And then in the mail, I got this letter written on a 3x3 Post-it note. And it says, I'm going to read it to you. And it was so long. Oh boy, it's a long time ago, almost 20 years. Oh my goodness. It says, "Dear Kory, thanks for the check." I mailed a check into the venue because I rent, so they were thanking me for that. And it goes on to say, "I have admired your persistent, quiet determination and attention to details. It is more than talent. It's a mature determination. I could do well to apply the same to my life. May God bless all of your efforts. Signed, Neil S." Who's Neil? He's the building custodian. I said, what the? I was blown away. The fact that, when you get up in the morning, you get up, you wash your face and hands, you brush your teeth, you go, no big deal, okay? When you get dressed, you put on your sleeve, when you make your own, he was watching me get ready for the concert. It was no different than brushing. I know someone has to hang the lights. I thought, that's no big deal. You have to do it. But the way I went about it, like I knew he could tell by looking at me, I had a goal to do, and I was going to do it. And this blew him away. I mean, this is how insightful he was. And saying that, admitting to himself, "Gee, I've been kind of slovenly. I'm not really have a goal or an aim to my life. I can see by look, he's doing this simple thing, and I'm just sitting here, I'm just imagining the conversation going on in his head." And I was puzzled for years. What did he mean by quiet determination? Like I say, this was, big deal. I brushed my teeth, right? This sat on me for years, but at this seminar, this came to the surface. That's what I'm going to write about. I'm going to find out, what does quiet determination mean? Okay. He's saying it was more than talent. It's not a talent. Okay. He says it's more than a talent. It's mature determination. So he could see, I'm determined to do something regardless. And so many people, and that's the whole idea. Many people have ideas, they have dreams, but they have no determination. They haven't got the whatever to see it through from one end to the, they go so far, oh, that's nothing, they drop off. So it's this quiet determination that eventually I will get there, So like they say, how do you eat an elephant? One piece at a time. Okay, it's not all done at once. And so this book was an extrapolation of the meaning of quiet determination. So basically that's what the book is about. It's about developing a mindset. Okay, it's developing a mindset to get the job done in spite of the barriers that may be hiding your untapped success. Okay, and everybody has that. We all have barriers, and some people can go around them or through them, but many people hit the wall and bounce back. You watch those fish going up the fish ladder. Boing, 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 whoopee, and they make it. So basically that's the premise of the book.
I like that. I like that. So my last question for you today is a fun question. Leave you with a fun question. So you're going to pretend you have a fairy godmother, and she tells you, say a name, any name, and this person can be either dead or they can be alive. For this case, I'll say a composer. And when you say that name, you end up in a studio and you will be co-writing a song with this person. Who will that be and why? And what kind of song would you be co-writing, co-composing with this composer?
I would probably like to co-write a song, probably Beethoven. Why? He was very emotional. Very, very, if you listen to his music, especially his piano stuff, he is so emotional. And it runs the gamut of emotions, from fierce to the very delicate and fine. So he would show his vulnerabilities and he would show his power, and he wasn't afraid to do that. And that is, I guess, showing of how you're really feeling it. That's a real expression of emotion. So because he could really express his emotions musically, and they varied. A lot of composers, they have they have an area they stay. I'm going to stay here, maybe a little bit, but he can go from one end to the other. And so that would be a great inspiration to having to, to maybe even go out there even further. And yet his music was very, very simple. I've analyzed one of his piano pieces, and they talk about, how many chords there were in it? 3. And the old funny stories about, I know 3 chords, I can become a rock musician. That's the old joke among musicians. You only need 3 chords. Da 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 da. That's 3 chords. Da 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 dee 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 dee. And there's millions of songs been written on that chord, what we call a chord progression or a chord pattern. And this whole thing, he was. I did a piece on him, Beethoven, the original rock musician, because this piece, and it's like a 20-minute piece, and it was based on 3 chords. And that's the beauty of simplicity. Beauty is simple, it's not complex. And that's why an artist is an artiste, because he can take something simple and make it appear like it's very, very complicated, but it is not. And that's what most human endeavors are. They look so complicated and so difficult, but the master knows the simplicity of it. It's very simple. It's like computer. It's either on or off, a 1 or a 2. You can't get any simpler. And we look at, oh, look at all this code. How can I do all that? You know, when it's really the master knows it's a 1 and a 2 or a 2.
Cool. Well, that's all the time.
Our lives began as childhood friends. We played the games that children play. There'd be tales of pirate ships and 7 mighty seas you sailed. And as you pushed me on that swing, I'd sail above the clouds. Just 2 children that we knew, nothing drawn attention to. Then came the time for play to end.
That's all the time we have today for Musical Interlude. I'm your host, Casey Bell, and I have to thank my guest, Kory Livingstone, for taking the time to share with me his journey and his life in the music business. And of course, you, the audience, as always, I thank you so much for taking the time to view this video. Have yourself a great day. That is all the time we have for you for today. Thank you for watching. We hope to see you again